Hello, divine creations, divine marvels, children of God. Thank you so much for dropping by this video. I'm going to share a few things that were said by Bruno Groening. And for anyone who's new to this channel, Bruno Groening is, in my view, one of the greats, one of the greatest, in my view, just one of the greatest souls to ever walk on this planet. And many healings happened around him. Many healings continue to happen when people practice his teachings. And he explained the spiritual path in such simple language. And so I'm going to share a little bit of that today. And here's a quote from Bruno. It's from the book Wisdom of Life, Volume 2, page 86. Why do people not take the good to heart? Why did they not absorb it into themselves? Why did they never do all of that which they owe themselves to begin with? This is what was lacking. And now it is important that you really, and honestly start to make up for what you have neglected by doing now this, always doing that which you owe to yourself. And that you really pay attention to this, your body, which is a divine gift. And that you really open yourselves, that you really devote yourselves to the good, to God, and that you absorb this true divine transmission, and that you really take all this good into your heart. So, as I hear these words, my understanding of them is that Bruno is speaking about something very important, if not the most important thing. Very simply, this thing being to take in what he called the divine transmission, the Heilstrom, the power of God. Different words for it. Sometimes I just think of it as the love of God, the energy of God. That this is a primal aspect of being human. Taking in this goodness. Sometimes he just calls it the good. Taking in this goodness. And then living by that goodness. But here he's talking about how we, as individuals and as a human race, that we neglected that in the past. And he goes so far as to say, why did they never do all of that which they owe themselves to begin with? So I would like to look at the German word for owe ourselves, but that's a very profound declaration of how important this is, right? That if it's something we owe ourselves, he also sometimes called it a duty, that we have a duty to take in this goodness. Now, according to Bruno Groening, this simple act of taking in the good of this good divine transmission is the essence of the spiritual path, because through doing this, we stay connected to God. When human beings don't do this, then they become disconnected from God and connected to evil, to what's not good. And this evil, Bruno Groening said, then literally grasps them and sticks to them. And it can be very difficult to get free from this evil. In fact, he said the only way to do it is this divine energy. Of course, there are other things that are supportive, such as he spoke about the importance of helping other people. But ultimately what he said is that God is the only way that can then free us from negativity. He once said how important it was that we stay fully charged up with this good divine energy so that we can be mindful when negativity is literally trying to take us over, that we can watch for these negative thoughts. And if we're full of good energy, then we'll have the presence and the wisdom and the insight to be able to say no to those negative thoughts. You know, all of this is so simple, right? Like I'm talking about taking in divine energy, watching your thoughts, saying no to bad thoughts. Very not complicated. But to live it moment by moment, to strive to be connected to, not just to be connected to God, but literally to receive the goodness, the love, the power, the grace that God is showering down. So my understanding is it's, if we feel disconnected to God, it's not that God isn't there, and it's not that God isn't showering us with God's blessing. It's that we're not taking it in. We're not focusing on it. Or that we've become so packed, covered over with evil that we can't even feel it. If that's the case, Bruno Groening spoke of the need for a spiritual helper, someone who could help to free us from evil. He said that he was such a person. He also spoke of Christ as such a person. And ultimately, he didn't really talk much about religious topics. He talked about religious practice of taking in the power of God. And he once said that this power is available to people of all religion. There is the prerequisite of being willing. There's only one, real prerequisite, and that's being willing to believe in God. When I first found this teaching, I didn't even believe in God, but I was open. And through practicing this, I became a believer. So let's want the good. Let's want the divine. Let's strive for connection for it. Let's ask for guidance. Let's plead for guidance and plead to be filled up with the peace, power, and love of the Almighty One. We'll spend a little time in silence. To anyone who's new, the way to absorb this energy, Bruno taught, was to give away all problems, and especially restlessness or agitation. If you're restless or agitated, it's not really the time to do this practice. You need to give that away and get clear of that first. And then observe your body, having the intention, the desire, the will. Will isn't a word that's used very often, but the primal drive to take in this divine energy. Thank you so much for dropping by. A warm welcome to anyone who's new. And I wish everyone a beautiful, higher-powered, God-filled day. Be blessed. Take care.